about her soon. She and Hans Förster of the English department at the Ratsgymnasium, they started everything when the Bundesaustauschdienst had advertised a program. Each of these two teachers, unbeknownst to each other, signed some papers, filled out some forms, and sent them in. And the Austauschdienst, quite by chance, put the two schools together. So with me is Kim Davies Traum, who was a student traveler with Frau Hoffmann in the very first Goslar visit, and who knew Frau Hoffmann very well up until her very recent death at the age of 101. So she will tell you some more about Frau Hoffmann. I was there for the Shaker half of that very first exchange because I was a Referendarin, that is a student teacher, a practice teacher, with Frau Hoffmann, and she couldn't do it all by herself. She was running around like a crazy person, making all the events come out correctly. And so I had to hold the fort in the classrooms. So I did a few things with the group, but not too much. 3 years, 3 years later, when she retired, I became the next German teacher. Back then we had only about 100 students and maybe four classes. In the beginning, we only had 3 years at the high school. So it was a senior high school and there was a junior high school. There were two of them where no German was taught. Okay, so I organized and reinvented the exchange over the next 16 years. I accompanied the Shaker students for 12 of those 16 trips, and I guided the Goslar students 4 times down to Washington and New York City. Later we included Gettysburg as well as Philadelphia. What happened on those trips stays on those trips. So use your imaginations. No, don't. So from those trips came hundreds of unforgettable anecdotes, and I'd like to tell you just a few of them. We always spent about 2.5 weeks with our wonderful Goslar host families, and then we spent about 4 full days in Berlin with the one and only Herr Drüner. I don't know anyone who remembers Herr Drüner. Is one. Does he still live? I think possibly not. Yeah. Okay.
Ja. Der war doch von dem im Sommer.
Der war ja da, ja. Aber jetzt?
Erzähl mir das später. Okay, so. And then we spent about 4 days on the road, seeing different parts of Germany each year. Usually we did that just after we landed in the airplane, in order to get our inner clock set in the right continent. And we went to usually about 2 different places each year. So here's a list of some of the places we went. And we stayed in youth hostels and had train passes, and backpacks. We could put our big suitcases in storage. And so the train took the big suitcases up to Goslar and stored them, and we traveled with little backpacks. Okay, here's where we went. Yet, of course, we went to München because many of you know München, but also we went to Wiesbaden, Mainz, Kronach, Heidelberg, Freiburg, Lübeck, Nürnberg, Berchtesgaden, Köln, Ehrenbreitstein und Bacharach am Rhein. So, but we also went farther afield. For some days, we were in Weimar with families, and this was maybe 91. So right after the change. Okay, we also went to Wien, Salzburg, and Kufstein in Austria, and we went to Faulensee, Innsbruck, and Konstanz in Switzerland. So this is how I learned to know your country and your neighbors. One time we even went to Copenhagen in Denmark. So in most places, and many times the Ratsgymnasium took us to Hamburg as well. But that was not on our own. So in most of these places where possible, we bravely climbed down mountains, a small mountain, although we never ventured to climb up one. So that we weren't sure we were in condition for that. While we were in Berlin before 1990, we always spent a whole day in communist East Berlin. Going through the Bahnhof checkpoints, we had to exchange 50 of our very good Deutschmarks for 50 East marks, which were almost worthless. You could spend them on a few things like ice cream, books, maybe some records, but nothing else. We could really not spend these 50 East marks. So after a day of much exploring, we would have our supper at the Ratskeller of the Red Rathaus, the Rotes Rathaus, on the Alexanderplatz in East Berlin. And sometimes we danced, we ate, and sometimes even danced with East German soldiers. So after that, we would, as it's getting close to midnight, we would walk back to the Bahnhof Friedrichstraße and sing loudly, going down the dark streets in the middle of the street. It was very bold. And when we got to the train station just before midnight, we would give our leftover money to the poor souls who were sitting around on the sidewalk. So we don't think they were homeless, because I think in the People's Republic, everybody had something of a home, but they seemed homeless. So we gave them our leftover money. Okay, let's see, and we had to scurry across to the west just before midnight. One year before 1990 again, we actually brought along cans of spray paint, and that was the year we had an art teacher who came with us, and the art teacher made this his project, so people competed for great designs to put on the west side of the wall, and so we had a spray paint event up against the side of the wall, which was defaced. The other side, of course, was barbed wire and everything. Sometimes we threw the leftover cans over the fence. So now there's one anecdote for you. I need to say, also in 1990, that was a big year. As you can see from my T-shirt, I think you saw it already. I was for half a year teacher at the Ratsgymnasium, an English teacher, and Herr Cordis, Herr Heiko Cordis, was a German teacher at Shaker. We exchanged. I lived in the Peterstraße, and this was my Leistungsklasse, 12th grade Leistungskurs. So on the back of my T-shirt are the names, the signatures of my students in that class. And I hope somebody there is the child or the grandchild or the niece or the nephew of one of those kids. I'm hoping. Okay, now for a few well, maybe I shouldn't tell all the hair-raising stories. I could tell a few, however, just a few. First of all, there was Robert. Some faculty members know this one already. Robert met an Irish girl while walking around the streets of Goslar, and he decided to go with her to Dublin. So he collected 55 marks from these kids, and 5 from those, and 5 from these, and 5 from those. He got lots of money, he bought his tickets, he bought a ferry ticket to Dublin, and the kids told me this story at the last minute. So I didn't know what to do. I was the only teacher. So I took Robert to the post office, which was the only place you could make a long distance phone call in those days. And we called his mother. And his mother, to my astonishment, said, "Oh, sure, that's a great idea. Robert has my permission to go to Dublin." So I didn't know what to do, because I wasn't sure of my legal status, what if I was responsible for him, if his mother. So she sent me a telegram saying that he has permission from his mother, and I let him go. So after this, I hear it was the wrong thing to do, but at the time it seemed right. So we finished the exchange, we went home again without Robert, and along came the first day of school. And I went to my classroom for first period Deutsch 2, and there was Robert sitting in the corner in the back. "Robert, why are you here? You're in Dublin." "No," he said, "it was no fun. It was just another gray old city with parents that don't let you do anything." So that's one of my favorite stories, but it could have ended differently. Okay, then there was Scott, who brought a large shoulder-held video camcorder on his shoulder, huge thing. I mean, that's what we had in those days, was real big, they looked like movie cameras. And he took it with him into East Berlin. And he's filming in the train station, which is verboten, but I didn't even know that. So along comes a guard and hits it out of his hand and takes it away from him. So we had to go through our East Berlin day without the camera. And fortunately, when we came back at midnight the same day, they had it waiting for him. So he got his camera back, but they took the film out. So that was our little close call with the East German Garda. Oh, I could tell you some more. The kids who got lost in München, the two that got lost in Wien, they were found. No, actually, they found themselves. We were crazy scared, riding in both cases, going around in police cars, looking for them, filling out missing person forms. And in both cases, after all the search, they were found sleeping in their bed at the youth hostel because they, on their own initiative, they were smart, they got taxi cabs, they talked with the cab driver, they found their way back to the youth hostel, and they went to sleep. So, that's enough. I've got more, but many of you have some good ones as well. I've talked too long. There's some more from the past for all of you travelers from the second 20 years of Herr Soleil and Frau Brat. We who approach our middle and our older years, thank you for keeping this great tradition alive and well. Welcome to Shaker Goslar Exchange Class of 2018. May your experiences here and the connections you make stay with you forever. May your experiences stay with you forever, help to inform many of your life choices, not all of them, but some of them, and furnish a few good tales to tell your grandchildren. Goslar ist unser zweites Zuhause. we Shaker alumni happily pass the torch to our third generation.